In the budget process, and the latest political scandal to erupt in Albany is the Senate's Republican leader. Dean Skelos has been kind enough to drop by the studio this evening. Thanks for taking the time tonight.
Good to be with you, Liz.
So, what's going on at the Capitol?
You know, that's a good question. I mean, the governor, as you know, submitted his budget in a timely fashion. And under the Budget Reform Act of 2007, Democrat leadership in the Senate and the Assembly was supposed to start joint conference committees. They did pass their individual budget resolutions so that the legislature could negotiate a final budget. Unfortunately, they've refused to do it. They've made a determination that Republicans are going to be excluded from the process. And so we're waiting to see. The governor today has indicated he's going to submit budget amendments to make up for the additional deficit that exists, and is asking for an up or down vote.
Which isn't going to happen.
Well, I mean, I think it should happen. And he's also going to ask that the legislature stay up 5 days a week until there is a budget, and that I would support also.
Okay, have you switched parties lately? I'm just curious.
Have I what?
You're still a Republican, right?
I'm still a Republican.
You're sitting here talking to me about how great the governor is, and he's a Democrat. What happened?
Well, he, in fairness to him, he submitted his budget, and that's what he's required to do.
Yeah, but then he sort of checked out. I mean, you told me earlier before the show started, I asked you when you had last spoken to the governor, and when was the last time you spoke to the governor?
Probably a month and a half, but what I mentioned about the other leaders, they've all made a decision that Republicans are going to be excluded from the budget negotiations. Really what should happen now is you'd be joint conference committees. And I think that's the governor supports that concept, and certainly the legislative leaders. Right now, Democrats are violating the law by not bringing those conference committees together.
Okay, but then they say, the Democrats say, that you are actually not violating the law, but you Republicans are voting as a block no, right? I mean, you voted no, most of the Republicans voted no on the budget resolution. Right. You're voting no largely along party lines, and so they say, well, you don't want to play ball. I mean, part of the problem, right, is this razor-thin majority that the Democrats have. That means that at any time they have a person who's out sick, which we've seen a couple of times, and they need you, 32 votes to pass anything.
You know, the deficit reduction plan, many of us voted for that in past December, so that's not exactly true. We have voted, but when you're excluded totally from the process and told, here, take it or leave it, why do you just blindly go and support what they're doing?
But didn't you guys do that to them when they were in the minority?
No, we had joint conference committees.
Sometimes.
Yeah, but we had them.
Sometimes.
And the 2007 law, the process wasn't working, and that's why in 2007 we passed the budget reform law, and then in 2008 we had resolutions done on time, the governor submitted his budget, we went to joint conference committees, and we had an on-time budget. That's the last time we were on the majority.
Well, I mean, you weren't majority leader, but there were for a while there, the Republicans were in power, and there was 20 years of late budgets. I mean,
right.
Just that did happen, right?
And it doesn't mean that was right. But in 2007, we recognized that the process was not working. It was a dysfunctional process. We came up with the Budget Reform Act that set up a process so you could have on-time budgets. And the last time we were in the majority in 2008, we followed the law and we had an on-time budget.
So let's assume that they continue, as you say, to keep you out of the process. And the Democrats, that would be Sampson in the majority, the Democratic conference leader now in the Senate, Shelley Silver in the Assembly, and the governor. They make a deal. Will any of your members be voting for that?
Well, first of all, we haven't conferenced it, but we've made it very clear. No taxes, no fees, and you have to cut spending. Okay,
so impossible, and there might probably be some cuts, but no taxes and fees? Where's the revenue going to come from?
Why is it impossible?
Well, I mean, what I'm saying is it's not impossible to do, it's just impossible that the final deal will look that way.
Well, we want to show them a way to do it, and they've excluded us from the process. Just yesterday, I had a press conference where we showed where you could find close to $2 billion in cuts. Our Medicaid system, Liz, 70% above the national average per recipient. If you went from 70% just to 60% above the national average, you'd save about $1 billion. If you had some of the, Senator Hannan came up with a report on other savings for Medicaid, you could save about $200 million. Certain other efficiencies with government, cutting back on travel within the state government, a couple $100 million. postponing the implementation of some of the new programs, hundreds of millions of dollars. So there are ways it can be done if you have an open process and you include us in that process.
But it's probably a safe bet that your suggestions are not going to be in the final product. And the final product is, just today, the governor said $620 million to close the deficit that you were saying that his budget, as he initially proposed, it was in balance and almost immediately fell out of balance by about $620 million after his amendments on February 9th. So there's revenue enhancers there, revenue enhancers, which are tax and fee hikes, right. So then am I to assume that there will be no members of your conference voting yes on the final budget product as if it has anything in there
We're
that
not
you don't
going to
like?
support taxes.
Okay.
I think the people have been very clear. They want government not to raise taxes. They want us to cut spending. They want private sector job creation, and they don't want debt.
So what you're telling
Very
me
simple.
then is that if there's to be a budget, then the Democrats have to get 32 votes on their own.
If their taxes or fees, they're going to have to get their 32 votes.
Okay.